This is Maurice Jones-Drew, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show.
You're listening to the What's Bruin Show, part of the What's Bruin Show network, with your hosts, Jake Berryfield and Mike Regalado, and occasionally some friends, talking all things UCLA sports. And now, it's time for the What's Bruin Show.
Well, hello, welcome to What's Bruin. I am your host, Jake Merrifield, and I'm joining you right after the Bruins defeat the Fresno State Bulldogs at the Rose Bowl in the season finale 2013 in a wonderfully exciting game, wasn't it? I was meant to go to the Rose Bowl, but then my son ended up having an event that I had to go to, so I gave my tickets to my good friend Leo, super fan of the What's Bruin Show and of UCLA football, and hopefully was able to enjoy that. But if you went out to the Rose Bowl, hope you had a good time. It was absolutely dreadful, miserable first half, and then the second half was a little bit better as the Bruins score field goal in the first quarter, field goal in the second quarter, touchdown in the third quarter, touchdown in the fourth quarter, and end up beating the Bulldogs 20-7 in a game that was very much just like a lot of the other Bruin games this year, meaning that they didn't quite put together, two and a third. They put together about 2 1/3 quarters of decent enough football to stay in the game and or have a chance to win the game and or win the game. And that's pretty much what we got here. Only they chose to backload this one, just like they backloaded the opening game of the season. So if you're a fan of symmetry, which of course I am, this was a perfectly symmetrical end to the season in that the Bruins played a non-Power 4 opponent and they had an absolutely dreadful first half, and then they struggled but managed to dominate the second half to come away with a victory, an unimpressive victory, certainly. But at this point, the Bruins finishing 5-7, any victory was going to be a good victory for these particular Bruins in 2024. So with that being said, it's What's Bruin Show on the What's Bruin Show Network. Thank you for your support. You can follow us on Twitter at What's Bruin Show or X or whatever. What's Bruin Show at gmail.com is the email. What's Bruin.substack.com for your support. Subscribe for just a couple bucks a month, or also at patreon.com/What's Bruin Show or just what'sbruinshow.com. You can also search up the show on YouTube. Just search What's Bruin Show and look for the UCLA stuff. And you can call the hotline, 805-399-4WBS, second reign of Troy. And we are certainly happy that they did not get to do the double rivalry game celebration as they lost to the Domers today. Nothing wrong with that at all. But all right, for this post game, let's get into what actually happened in the game, and then we'll do some ballers, and then we'll talk about the kind of what it means for the season, and then we will get out of here. Thank you very much on this nice Thanksgiving weekend. Really, I don't want to talk too much about the first half because it was just absolutely freaking dreadful. I watched and listened to this in various different ways because I was out at a park at a flag football game for Granada High School football, their Turkey Bowl, and I was kind of checking in and out of it. And then I ended up at Bill's house to watch some of the game, and I saw the most infamous sequence of football I've ever seen, as far as which I'll get to in a second. And then I was listening to a little bit of it, but just the first half characterized by our friend Bill as, oh my God, they should be up 14-0, but they can't get out of their own way and just keep getting penalized. And yeah, that certainly was the case as they take away, seven penalties in that first half, just cannot get out of their own way. They're absolutely dreadfully putrid running the ball, 0.3 yards per carry. I know some of that was taken away in sack yardage. And they end up having to punt the ball 4 times in a very self-defeating half. Only 2 field goals by our man Bagani. With Bagani. Good thing they brought that guy along. But once again, the story of this game, along with all the other games of the season, seemingly are, the defense is there to play, and they just have to hope that the offense can do just barely enough to, allow them to give a chance to be in a game, and also not just completely sabotage them. But in this case, in this first half, the offense was doing a good job of sabotaging everything with all the penalties, and then, of course, there was the just absolutely most bonkers weird special teams play ever, where the Bruins actually get a freaking punt block from Captain America, Carson Swessinger, but the ball does not go beyond the line of scrimmage. It's picked up by a Fresno State Bulldog, and he's just standing there, and the whistle's obviously not blowing it dead because it's not a dead ball, and then he kind of does a juke move to take off, and then they end up tackling him but getting a face mask while they tackle him. That is kind of just a microcosm of the UCLA season this year, isn't it? Like that, they make a good play, but then they find some way to kick themselves in the ball after making a really nice play. And then the net is Fresno State gets the ball back, and then they go on their only touchdown drive of the entire game right then and there, and kind of for a few minutes of this game, take control of the action. They take a lead 7-6, and then they end up adding a field goal at the end of the half in just an absolutely dreary, depressing, horrible first half. One of the worst first halves that the Bruins have had, especially when you give, when you take into account the level of the opponent, right? It's not a surprise in hindsight that they got blown out by Indiana or by Oregon in the first half, but in this game and in the Hawaii game, the fact that it was close, had to have been kind of sort of alarming, obviously for much different reasons, the first game of the season versus the last game of the season. But thank goodness the Bruins do have a second half in this game. They do have another opportunity to make some hay in this game, and they come out in the second half and really kind of dominate the action for most of the rest of the game. I was listening to the radio coming out of the half before I got home and turned on the TV, and Wayne Cook, friend of the show, Wayne Cook, interviews Deshaun Foster coming out, and Deshaun basically said, these guys got UCLA scholarships. These guys need to find a way to play, and it's time to grow up. Kind of, it was something to that effect. Very, very blunt, and he was obviously he was pissed off. And look, certainly there was a big lack of player execution in the first half, and we can talk about how much of that is a reflection of the coaching. But whatever he said at halftime fired him up quite a bit because the defense comes out and stones Fresno State 2 times in a row. The Bruins put together a nice touchdown drive on their first drive. They drive all the way down to the what was inside the 10-yard line, I want to say, and would have scored another touchdown, making this game much more comfortable at that point. They were up 13-10, and then they have a fourth down play where they bring in the fullback, 4th and 1, and Ethan Garbers throws a very easy pass to fullback Leo Kemp, who had come in. They're in I formation, and Kemp has the ball in his hands and just lets it drop right out of the bottom of his breadbasket onto the ground, and they turn the ball over. But at that point, that would have made the game 20-13 heading into the fourth quarter, right at the end of the third quarter, and that would have made this a much more comfortable ride for the Bruins. But he drops it, and they give the ball back to Fresno State, and so then we end up having to go 3 more drives, another half quarter before the Bruins get their insurance touchdown that kind of puts it out of reach of the Bulldogs. And that's on an impressive drive that they had that went like 15 plays or something and 6 minutes. But they did have to get bailed out in the middle of that drive with a roughing the passer call that I thought was a legit roughing the passer call. There was a question about whether it was targeting or not, but Garbers did get hit hard right after he released it, and in today's day and age, it probably is a legit roughing the passer, I think, although 20 years ago, probably not. Then, that's pretty much the end of the game there. They score the touchdown. Jamaal Sturdivant finally catches a touchdown. Was that his first of the year? I think it was. Just unbelievable, some of the lack of statistics from some of the players on this team this year. But that's a story for another day. But J-Mike seals the game with that big touchdown. Fresno State would then go into kind of the quick drill and kick a field goal and give themselves a chance to have an onside kick to maybe have a possession to tie the game. But the onside kick goes out of bounds, and the Bruins get the win.
Fight!
Go Bruins!
Go Bruins.
I'm happy that UCLA won.
So when you look at this game just from the stat book, it is a game that UCLA pretty much dominated the whole thing. You look at time possessions, completely out of whack. UCLA had the ball for 37 minutes to 20, just under 23 for Fresno State. The Bruins were 8 for 16 on third down. Fresno State was only 5 for 14. The Bruins outgained the Bulldogs by almost 100 yards, 363 to 281. They outrushed them. They outpassed them. More first downs, more total plays, more trips to the red zone. The Bruins were in the red zone 5 times. Fresno State was in the red zone 1 time the entire game. So this is another one of those games where the Bruins are actually, kind of unlike the beginning of the year. The Bruins were able to move the ball in spots, even though I'm not apologizing for this offense at all. It was dreadful in the first half and all that. But the penalties and the miscues in the critical moments and in the important area of the field, close to the end zone, keeps this team from scoring enough points to be a truly competitive football game. The defense, on the flip side, from the first part of the year, where I thought that they were, quote unquote, not the problem, to kind of the middle of the year turning point where they went from being a, quote, not the problem to being legitimately a good defense. They continue that play here. And it's a shame that kind of 2 years in a row, UCLA has had a good defense, a good defense that should be able to be paired with just a decent to mediocre offense, right? And they would be winning a lot of games. I think that's kind of where we were in spurts last year, and when we weren't experimenting with the Dante Moore in the Pac-12 conference. But bottom line is the defense was good this year. The offense is the story of woe, the problem. And who knows next year, what they're going to have, what pieces they're going to have to kind of play with out on the field to generate more offense, or what pieces they're going to have to put together another good defense. But I'll tell you right now, if this staff carries over to next year intact, I am much less worried about the defense being able to put together, putting a decent team together, right? I would still just kind of default to, okay, their defense is going to be mediocre to okay, and then maybe have a chance to turn into being a good defense again as like their floor to their ceiling, whereas the offense is like, I will be thrilled if they put together a mediocre offense next year, given how this year went, right? So the defense has a pretty firm floor in my mind, regardless of who they lose, and the offense has, unfortunately, there is no floor, and that's just it's just kind of a shame, and that's where we're at.
What a shame.
As far as the season goes, me and Mike will do more of a season wrap up in the next show or the show after. Just talk about what this team was for the whole season. I want to get back to talking about just this particular game, but I think it is, very fortunate for the Bruins that they were able to get away with a win in this game, right? The good thing was that it was on Big Ten Network, and so pretty much nobody was watching except for UCLA fans and Fresno State fans, I suppose. This was not one where they embarrassed themselves on national TV like in Hawaii, where everybody turned the game off at the end of the half because it was just so bad. And just like, oh my gosh, UCLA looks terrible this year. And it wasn't one of the national TV beatdowns they got early in the season, or one of the nice national TV games they got, later during the 3-game win streak. But, last week after the SC game, it was so deflating because the game that they should have won and they didn't. And it really took them out. It took them out of contention for going to a bowl, and it really did put a firm ceiling on how we could look at this season, right? Finishing 5-7 with this final game against Fresno State, there's only so much that people will say, oh yeah, well, there are only so many excuses and rationalizations you can make for this particular year just because of the way it played out. But you certainly do have the capability to say, if you wanted to, that, they started tough with a tough schedule and the new staff and all that stuff, but then they put some things together, and in the back half of the season, regardless of the offensive problems and all that, all the microscopic stuff you want to look at as to why, the offense struggles so bad, you still have to say, well, this team in the second half of this season was 4-2, which is a pretty darn good record, that the staff can point to and say, look, we are building something, and it is, and come back and be with us next year and be part of the program and build it, right? Assuming they have money to pay people and assuming they can get some recruits in here, right? That's a whole nother story. But at the very least, that narrative is alive. We finished the season 4-2. I guarantee you we're going to hear that a million times anytime UCLA football pops up in the offseason. If anybody's talking about him, it's going to be, oh, well, Deshaun Foster in the second half of the season went 4-2. Oh, look at that progress he made there after that tough start. If they lose this game, that is all gone. So USC put a solid ceiling on how optimistic we could be about this season, or how nice we could be about this season for sure, because they can't go bowling and they lose to their rivals and all that stuff. But if they would have lost this game, it would have removed the floor of us talking about this season. I know a lot of ceiling and floor talk in this episode, but they lose this game, then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, they started 1-5, and then they had that little 3-game stretch where they looked all right, and then they finished the season 0-3. And I think even though the difference between 4-8 and 5-7 is not very much, number wise, it's just so much harder to paint a rosy picture when you start 1-5 and you finish 0-3, right? And none of those wins are like real actual notable wins, really. Like, UCF fans, we enjoyed that Iowa game, but it's not like we're like, oh yeah, we beat Iowa. None of that. There's no like real signature style wins when you look at it. So this was kind of a must win, I think, for this program to just even maintain some sort of, viable level of, any sort of, wind at their backs. I think it would have been absolutely crushing if you managed to lose this game, even though you won the game in pretty unconvincing fashion, right? There's a lot of complaints you can make about this game. But now heading off to the off season, there are a few, mildly positive storylines you can have. And you could see that if they are able to go out there and sell this to boosters that have money and recruits that may want to join, you can now say, well, look at this team. They played hard the entire season all the way through, regardless of the game. I think that's a feather in the cap of Deshaun Foster. Hopefully they'll have some sort of reimagining of what this offense is, whether it's Bieniemy coordinating it or not. I don't think there's any way they get rid of him. I don't know. I'm kind of talking my ass. I have no idea if they would or not. Certainly the scorecard suggests that they need to make a change on offense and that they don't have the right guy at the helm there. And then, you talk about all of the, for everything Deshaun Foster talked about DRE, this team for much of the season in many of the games forgets about Dre quite a bit.
They forgot about Dre.
Lots of penalties.
They forgot about Dre.
Poor execution.
They forgot about Dre.
So many field goals instead of touchdowns.
They forgot about Dre.
There's and it all goes back. I mean, just think of how many different moments during the season. It's like something good happens, and then some sort of personal foul or some ridiculous penalty, right? That keeps the other team in the game or keeps the Bruins from winning the game or what have you. So, but those are all things that could get better, I suppose. So I'm going to finish grousing about that. But bottom line is, I think that this victory was hugely important for just kind of maintaining any sort of positive energy carrying into next season. I think it would have been really, really hurtful if they dropped this one to those Bulldogs. And God, I mean, just it still blows my mind. That was the breaking of a 4-game losing streak to the Bulldogs. Thank God that's over. I'm so sick of hearing of watching Bruin UCLA football set new lows that haven't been seen since like the 1920s and 30s and 40s. I'm glad to have one of these bad streaks done with, right? So no more losing streak to Fresno State. Thank freaking God.
Didn't you say in your resume that you did 4 years at UCLA?
Yes. Technically, if you consider Bel Air an extension of the campus, which everybody does.
Okay, well, let's get to the ballers now and then wrap this bad boy up. Number one, I think that, making big plays throughout the game. Certainly the number one baller of this game is going to have to go to one of the Garber's go-to guys for the whole season, and that is none other than Maliki Matavao. He ends up with 8 receptions for 120 yards.
Straight baller.
Long of 35. One was a big one that really got, I think, on one of those scoring drives, or maybe it was the drive that they almost scored on but didn't quite. But early in the third quarter, he had a big play and 66 yards after the catch. So that was huge. Very good. Very, very proud of that dude. And he is a baller.
Straight baller.
Along with the rest of the offense, Anthony Frias gets in there and ends up, not any gaudy numbers, but 13 carries in the second half. I think probably the running back room kind of pissed off Deshaun Foster, and he said, well, F this, we're throwing Frias in there. Old Anthony Colds goes 13 for 43, long of 8. He's 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of guy, but he got his 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And so, hey, it was nice to see that young man get a good effort out there. We'll give him a baller.
He's just a baller, man.
Really, for the other running backs, I would like to have seen a better game from them. Harden, I think, could have done better if he'd given more opportunities, but 4 for 23, 5.8 isn't going to get it done on most days. And as far as the other receivers go, Jamaal Sturdivant, God damn it, man. We got you finally a touchdown, but all season long. I mean, God, what is Sturdivant's actual season total? It's just absolutely dreadful. He had like 300 yards this year. Like, how does that happen? He had 755 freaking yards at Cal 2 years ago. He had 600 last year, and he had like 600 in like 2 games. This year, 300 yards on 20 receptions. How the hell does that happen? But he got a touchdown today, so just a baller.
Just a baller, man.
Honestly, with this offense, I just can't anymore. So those are all the ballers on the offense, and we'll just move on, and you may disagree, but, that's what it is. Leo Kemp could have had a baller. He would have caught that touchdown, but he didn't. He dropped it. So sorry, Leo. Better luck next time. On the defensive side, though, the Bruins have tons of ballers, and they were balling away all game. So first and foremost, none other than Captain America. He gets a triple
Straight
baller.
He's just a baller, man.
Carson Schwetzinger.
Just a baller, man.
15 goddamn tackles this game, 11 solo. Every time, Fresno State got rid of the ball, on a runner or pass, he's in the play, making the play. He's got a sack, and he also had a punt block that was taken away from him. It counts, like the punt block counts, but the momentum of that play was taken away from him. But just absolutely balled out and just absolutely terrific. Also, Kane Medrano will give you a baller.
Just a baller, man.
Also, always around the ball. 8 tackles, 7 solo. He also had a sack and 2 other tackles for a loss. So that was very, very good. Could not have as good of a year on defense today without the efforts of Schwetzinger and Kane Medrano. Absolutely vital to the cause. And then big boy Jay Toya, he gets 1 whole tackle in this game, but he really is the straw that stirs the drink as far as
Straight baller.
This defense goes, and he is a big baller, and he's the big baller in the middle, and we appreciate it. And we'll just leave it at that for the ballers. So I don't see any calls on my board here, so if you have something to say, call the hotline. It'll make it on to the Tuesday-ish show, 805-399-4WBS, Second Reign of Troy. And we will leave it at that for today. I do want to give big ups to the other game we had against Fresno State, and that is your number 1 ranked UCLA women's basketball team, more than doubling up the Fresno State Bulldogs, 97-41. Very, very nice by the ladies there, and congratulations. They're like, 7-0, 8-0, whatever they are. But Kiki Rice, 15 points, Dugalich, 11, Lauren Betts, 9 for 16, 20 points. I'm sorry, Kiki Rice was 6 for 9 on that, 3 for 4 from 3. So they were absolutely straight ballers.
Straight baller.
Just a baller, man.
He's just a baller, man.
Took me that she's a baller, but thank you very much for that. And we are happy that UCLA won.
I'm happy that UCLA won.
Yeah. So, Lauren Betts with 20 as well. No, I said Lauren Betts. Yeah. So, hey, there we go. Go women's basketball. I still think Mike is psychotic and weird for preferring a women's basketball victory over stupid victory in the crosstown, stupid showdown, stupid SC, and screw you. Glad you lost Notre Dame, whatever. But hey, to each his own. The women are playing well, and we should enjoy them. And now there's no more football season, so hey, turn our attention strictly focused over there on basketball. So hey. Okay, well, this will wrap it up, and I just hope you guys had a nice Thanksgiving weekend. It's Saturday. You got one more day left where you got to head back to work for most of us, and I certainly have enjoyed my weekend. For the second year in a row, we hosted over 20 people over at the Merrifield House for the family Thanksgiving. A lot of extended family over this time, and for the second year in a row, we knocked it out of the park, and I want to talk to my family being straight ballers.
Straight baller.
Wife, Sarah, daughters, Molly, Megan, and even Malcolm got into the mix to help out a little bit. So it was very good. Every single dish that we served, other than a couple that other people brought over as kind of extra stuff, but every single dish of the Thanksgiving meal was homemade, including 4 or 5 pies made by Megan, macaroni and cheese made by Molly, the turkey and pretty much all the other sides made by Sarah. That's green beans, that's yams, that's mashed potatoes, that's the homemade cranberry sauce. That's got all sorts of stuff in it. It's awesome. That's the gravy. There's a bunch of stuff. All the traditional Thanksgiving things. And I did cook corn, so I did a little bit, and then I cleaned afterwards. But it absolutely was. It was probably the best Thanksgiving feast that we've had so far, and on a bigger scale. So props to my wife Sarah. Good job. And also to the daughters and a little bit of mom. Although, he was very helpful. So anyways, hope your Thanksgiving also went well. Hope you guys ate well. Hope you enjoyed your family, time with your family and your friends. And we will talk to you again on Tuesday. And until next time, go Bruins.
Good evening.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
That was the What's Bruin Show.
Try us tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
It's got to be in or out, Mom. In or out. Well, I need the door closed.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Dude, Rob, we play some ball on the West Coast.
The final word is boob.